Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 4, Episode 19, Shattered Mirror. This episode aired April 22nd, 1996. Before we talk about a Mirrorverse episode, anything to say about last week's episode, which was Hard Time?
No, it was perfect.
It was a hard time to watch that episode and to talk about it. That was a rough one.
At least we don't get any torturing of Miles in this episode.
That's true. Miles is okay in this episode.
Yeah, it makes a nice change.
Well, they almost kill him at the end, but he's fine. Yeah.
But it is nice to have a Mirror Universe episode again. It's just a shame the Emperor won't be in this.
Yeah. Emperor Giorgio.
Yes.
I do mention her a few times in my notes. I see the parallels between the Deep Space Nine Mirrorverse and the Mirrorverse of Discovery.
Yeah.
I mean, Kira, she can just walk right into the Discovery version and be just fine. She'd just need a costume upgrade and she'd be good to go.
Agreed.
All right, well, should we talk about this episode?
Yeah, let's go for it.
In the cold open, Jake is hanging out in his old spot on the second level of the promenade when Odo stops by to ask him how he's doing. Jake figures Odo is there to chase him away like he used to when Jake sat in the same spot with Nog, but Odo points out he never chased Jake away. He was always chasing Nog away.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cute.
It was. Well, because Nog was always the one causing trouble.
Yeah, exactly. He was like throwing sand peas at people. So Quark comes by to complain about Nog joining Starfleet again for the millionth time.
Oh, yeah, he's got to put the dig in. I think he says his good-for-nothing nephew.
Oh, my gosh. He says Jake is always hanging out here pining for Nog. Jake gets annoyed and walks off. Quark says, oh, poor kid. That's what you get for having friends. Just when you think you can count on them, they go off and leave you. And Odo says, oh, I imagine that's why you don't have any friends. I mean, look who's talking, Quark says. Just a little friendship joke going on here.
Well, Odo has lots of friends. The Great Link. There'd be many changelings who'd be happy to be friends with Odo. He'd just have to accept their rather bigoted and backward view of all other races.
Well, he has to join their cult.
Yeah.
Those are not real friends. Those are cult friends.
That's interesting. I've never heard of the founders being referred to as a cult before.
Well, they are. They just, instead of telling you to drink the Kool-Aid, they become Kool-Aid and they just live together in the Kool-Aid. That's how I envision them.
This is turning into a really interesting analysis.
I have my own thoughts on how the world works, as you know.
Yes. Well, back to the episode.
So Jake goes home and sees his dad hanging out on the sofa with his mom. What? But of course, we're pretty sure this is not really Jake's mom.
No.
And we cue the theme song. So, of course, we learn that it's Mirror Jennifer, and she stopped by for a visit. For some crazy reason, Sisko just brought her to his quarters without warning Jake.
Yeah. I think he'd want to give more of a warning, like, Jake, your Mirror Universe mom is here. Mom, not mom.
Right. Well, Jake says he's wanted to meet her ever since he heard about her. He's shocked that she looks and sounds exactly like his mother. I mean, did you not listen to the stories? That's how it works. And then Kira calls with a diplomatic task for Sisko, so Sisko has to leave Mirror Jennifer and Jake alone. Sisko tells Jake that Mirror Jennifer came with good news that the rebels have driven the Alliance off of Mirror DS9, or referred to as Terok Nor in the other universe.
Yeah.
Then Sisko leaves them alone, but he does take a long look back at them before he leaves.
Jake is really happy about this. He is very clearly just bouncing off the walls at the idea of meeting the other Jennifer.
Yeah, he seems quite enamored with her.
Yes.
Or I guess maybe more specifically with the memory of his mother.
Right.
Not this particular person.
Yeah, because this person looks
yeah.
exactly like her.
It's funny, but Jake is like the person least bothered by this. He's just like, oh yeah, sure, there's my not mom.
Mom.
You know, whereas everybody else would be freaking out.
Yeah.
So yeah, he takes it in stride. I guess because Sisko warned him enough about it, so he knew what it would be like.
Well, we did get a bit of exposition here with Jennifer telling him that the rebels have been quite successful and have driven the Alliance off the space station. Now, that begs the question of what's happening on Bajor. Is Bajor still allied with the Alliance, or is it starting to think that maybe the rebels are a better bet?
Well, they keep trying to convince us that everything on Bajor is one. So if they're with the rebels, they're all with the rebels. If they're with the Alliance, they're all with the Alliance. So maybe overnight they just switch sides.
I just wish we could see Mirror Universe Kai Opaka or Kai Winn. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, Mirror Winn would be interesting. Because would she be more brutal, which is sort of how it's working on this show?
Yeah.
Or would she be like a Disney princess?
I'm thinking that she would be able to basically kill people just by looking at them in the mirror.
Blasphemy.
Yes.
So 3 hours later, Sisko and Kira wrap up their long meeting, and Sisko heads back to his quarters to discover that Jake and Mirror Jennifer are not there. When he asks the computer to locate Jake, he finds out that Jake is not on the station. Uh-oh.
Not good.
And then he finds a device sitting on the table that looks very familiar, and he sighs.
Yeah.
So he takes the device to Ops, shows it to Miles, and says it looks like the device that Smiley, or Mirror Miles, used to transport him to the Mirrorverse in the last Mirror episode.
Yeah.
He figures Mirror Jennifer took Jake, and Dax suggests that the device she left is an invitation for Sisko to join them.
Yeah.
Sisko says he accepts the invitation, but only to get Jake back. Seems like they could have just left a note. Have you ever noticed that nobody ever leaves notes in Star Trek?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the lack of paper, but I mean, she could have just said, hey, you got to come to the Mirrorverse.
Or how about just putting it on a pad?
Yeah, just leave a data pad with a note.
That would be a little bit too obvious of, hey, can you come through to the Mirror Universe? Because Jake wanted a tour of the station.
Yeah. Well, Sisko tells Kira and Miles to join him. Kira grabs a phaser for everyone, and they climb up to the platform to beam away. But when Dax energizes, only Sisko materializes on the other side.
I love how Kira immediately volunteers to go with him.
Yeah, and goes right for the phasers.
Yeah, he didn't actually ask her. She volunteered before he said that she should go with him.
Absolutely.
She is the person you want because she's got your back immediately. Awesome.
Oh, yeah, you 100% want her on your team.
Yeah. And also the straight to the weapons.
Yeah.
This is why Crossfire annoys me so much. That was so off character for Kira. This is Kira.
Yeah, totally.
She's not a high schooler.
I don't think we need to rehash that episode and talk about how much Kira was completely out of character and badly written. You can just go back and listen to that episode.
Oh, okay.
Well, over in the darker Mirrorverse, Smiley greets Sisko saying the others weren't invited. Sisko is here to take Jake home, but Smiley has other plans. He says Jake's not going anywhere, and neither are you. And we go to an ad break.
I did like the way Smiley said, "Welcome back, Captain."
Yeah.
So, is he referring to the fact that Sisko imitated or was impersonating the Captain Sisko from the Mirror Universe, or does he know that Sisko has been promoted? Because last time Sisko was there, he hadn't been promoted to Captain yet.
Well, it could be either one, because Jennifer could have told him that now he's captain.
Yeah.
Because Jake maybe told her, or she noticed the pips or whatever.
Yeah.
But also, he was Captain Sisko to him, so could be either one.
Okay. I'm thinking Smiley keeps a good eye on what's happening in the Prime Universe.
Maybe he gets an RSS feed from the Prime Universe, about things going on in Starfleet.
He's pretty smart.
Just goes right to his pad.
Well, yeah, and he seems to have no problem hacking their systems.
Exactly. Yeah. He set up some device. It's funneling data to the Mirrorverse.
It's a Mirror Universe subspace shunt.
Absolutely. Well, after the ad break, Smiley tells Sisko that they need help in fighting the Alliance, and they figured Sisko wouldn't help without Jake. It seems they've built a Mirror Defiant after stealing the specs from the regular DS9 to protect the station from the Alliance, and an Alliance fleet is already on the way.
Oh, yeah. Miles asks him, if we'd come and asked you for help in fighting the Alliance, what would you have said? And Sisko immediately says, I'd have said no.
Yeah, of course. Well, they're having some expected trouble with the ship because it's too powerful to work properly, which is a problem that Sisko says they had in the other universe.
Yeah.
He says they had to overhaul the structural integrity field grids, which took a couple of weeks, but Miles needs help doing it in 4 days, of course.
Oh, classic Star Trek engineering.
Totally.
You've only got 2 hours to fix it, Scotty.
So Smiley says Sisko needs to help them or they'll all be dead in a few days, or worse, work in the mines. Sisko is annoyed. They keep doing the same thing to him.
Yeah.
He says he needs to see that Jake is okay. And then in comes Captain Bashir. Miles says, oh yeah, everybody's a captain. I thought that was great.
Oh, I like that.
And Bashir punches Sisko, saying he owed him that from their last encounter when he thought he was the other Sisko. But Miles tells Bashir to keep out of Sisko's way.
And most importantly, get a haircut.
I will mention the hair when we see Dax standing next to him.
So this clearly demonstrates Miles has pulled a lot of information from the Federation side of the Mirror.
Oh, because he has the plans for the ship?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he must have downloaded that pretty quickly. Or I wonder if he just sort of beams in there every now and then and downloads some stuff to a USB stick and then beams out. Nobody notices because he just looks like Miles.
Right. Well, and we've already seen that Miles is the best character to impersonate when you're a changeling as well.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of ignores Miles unless they're torturing him.
Well, the funny thing is, Mirror Miles should check out Keiko. Keiko might want a less damaged version of her husband after what happened last week.
That's true.
Because I noticed this week, Miles is back to normal.
Well, of course he is.
We didn't mention anything that happened last week. Ugh. Now we go to Mirror Quarks, and it seems to actually be Mirror Nogs instead of Quarks. Yeah. Nog is saying that he'd never be friends with someone like Jake because he's too tall, which he's like twice as tall as Nog. When Sisko comes in, Jake says that this was all his idea to come to the Mirrorverse because talking to Jennifer is like talking to his mom. She listens like mom, and she smiles like mom. This is very frustrating to Sisko because she is not, in fact, Jake's mom. And
Jake is totally enamored with her. He really does just see his mother there.
Yeah, that is the word I had in my notes, too, that he's enamored.
Yeah.
Sisko can see that Jake is already thinking that they should just get back together and be a family again, even though Jake denies it.
And this woman will be totally different. She has a totally different background and upbringing and experience from Jennifer.
Totally.
I think this is part of the story that Jake's, if you like, emotions are getting the better of him. And he's not thinking with his head that this isn't the woman he thinks it is.
Yeah, he's sort of acting like a young child at this point,
but he lost his mother.
Sense.
Yeah, he lost his mother when he was very young.
Exactly. Yeah.
It might be jumping ahead, but I think this Jennifer has influenced the both of them even more than Sisko's prepared to admit.
Yeah, because they didn't show that at all. It was one of my complaints about the previous episode.
Yeah.
Well, Sisko takes Mirror Jennifer outside for a chat. She admits it was her idea to use Jake in this plan, and Sisko is annoyed that she's playing with Jake's emotions. He tells her to leave Jake alone, but she says she can't because Jake won't leave her alone.
Yeah.
A likely story.
And more great dialogue from Sisko here. I loved it when he said, "It's not your cause I have a problem with. It's your methods."
Yeah.
I guess this is that thing again of the Federation values and the values of the world in the Mirror Universe are just so different that maybe Sisko wouldn't even think that this was the way they would behave.
I'm not sure I follow your point. Are you saying that he wouldn't have expected this behavior?
Exactly.
Okay.
Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's sort of the point, is that the way they behave in this Mirrorverse isn't supposed to make any sense. I mean, technically, they shouldn't make sense to each other from either side. They shouldn't be able to understand the decisions. That's the point of the Mirrorverse. Although one of my complaints about this Mirrorverse is that some people are exactly the same.
Right.
Like Garrick seems exactly the same. Worf seems like he's maybe just a little bit more Klingon-y. But I mean, if you're looking at it as this is a true mirror universe.
Yes.
Although I guess they don't call it that in Trek. I mean, on the show, the characters don't call it that.
No.
But that's what we call it. Well, in the original TOS episode that introduced the Mirror Universe, I mean, they really leaned into it. And of course, they called it Mirror Mirror.
Yeah.
So that's where the mirror thing kind of got into our lexicon, I guess is the right word.
Right.
But here they don't say it. My version of me is very different in that universe. So they would make all different decisions. But we see that they're different.
Yeah.
So now we go to a huge Klingon attack cruiser surrounded by some smaller Cardassian vessels. And we find that the leader of the Alliance fleet is Mirror Worf, also called the Regent.
Oh, is that not just a beautiful looking Klingon ship? It's huge.
It's very large.
Great special effects.
He's got Garrick on a giant chain like Princess Leia and is blaming him for losing Terok Nor to the rebels. But Garrick, of course, tries to blame Mirror Kira. At one point, Mirror Worf shouts that Garrick is attempting to shift the blame away from himself, and Mirror Garrick says, "Am I succeeding?" That made me laugh out loud. Oh, that was funny.
Well, I think you're seeing a very pure Klingon version of Worf here.
Yeah.
We've discussed this in the past, where a lot of Worf's behavior is moderated by his human upbringing, his closeness with people, and his oath to Starfleet. So I think without any of those things, the nature versus nurture, all the Klingon instincts would come out in this version of Worf.
Yeah.
Which does tie into your comments before about this is the mirror.
Yeah.
So wouldn't this Worf be an artist and worried about beauty?
Shouldn't he be different?
Yeah.
He shouldn't care about honor. He shouldn't be so wrapped up in honor because that's what Worf is in the other universe.
Right. Oh, you know.
Even though, yes, his behavior would be slightly different because he was raised differently. Yeah. And maybe that didn't happen here. But still, should he still be honorable?
That's a good question. We don't see any of this, but maybe his house is like the House of Juras in this universe. Oh. They're utterly disreputable. They'll work with anyone.
He's got 2 booby sisters.
Oh, okay, that's funny.
Who are trying to take over the council, yeah.
I'm thinking more the deviousness rather than
I see. Okay. All right.
Having busty sisters.
Well, Worf tells Garak that the collar stays on until every rebel on Terok Nor is dead. And then we go to the mirror version of the Defiant, and Sisko is helping with the upgrades. In comes Mirror Dax to slap Sisko about him pretending to be Mirror Sisko last time he was here.
And holding a very large knife to his throat.
Yeah. Then they hear some screaming and they run out in the hallway to find Bashir torturing Mirror Kira with some device. Sisko takes the device away and Mirror Kira says she was fooled by him last time he was there. That was the idea, Sisko says.
Yeah.
And then she kind of whispers to him that he should help her escape, but he says, don't count on it, and they drag her off.
They could have got her better clothes. I mean, she's still in her clubbing outfit.
And she's still got the tinfoil thing around her head.
Yeah.
This time they showed it up close a few times, and I thought, God, it really does look like tinfoil.
Discount cosplay.
Back to the Klingon cruiser, one of the Klingons is telling Regent Worf about the new ship that the rebels have that will be ready in 2 days. He says it's an unknown class with an impressive weapons array, listing off the Defiant's capabilities. Garak suggests that they speed up, and Worf yanks on his collar some more. Every time they did that, when they pulled on it, oh gosh, that hurt. That just really made me cringe. Then Garak makes some euphemistic comments about being able to please the intendant on occasion, and Worf says, "You are not my type." And then he calls for them to increase speed. I don't know, that made me laugh. Back at Terok Nor, Jake has cooked dinner for his Mirror mom, and Sisko comes in, exhausted from working, and Mirror Jennifer starts giving Sisko a neck rub. She thinks he's being too hard on her, considering that he once pretended to be her husband. She tells Sisko that she's not going to get over her encounter with Jake. She looks at Jake as the son she'll never have, but then she says maybe bringing him here wasn't such a good idea.
So this has had something of an effect on her as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it kind of has backfired in that way.
Yeah, that's what we're supposed to believe. Well, in comes Smiley. The Alliance fleet is only 8 hours away, and we've run out of time.
Like I said, classic Star Trek engineering.
Yeah.
You've got 2 hours to get it working, Scotty, and now it's 15 minutes.
No, it's 8 hours. You got plenty of time. So last-minute preparations on the Defiant are sort of manic now, and everybody's running around. Bashir and Smiley are having some pointless argument about torpedoes. Did you happen to notice the fact that Dax and Bashir have the same hair in this episode?
Oh, I did not. Oh, what a cute couple they make.
Well, anyway.
You're clearly not enamored by any of this.
Oh, God, both of them are annoying. No, I'm not buying it. Bashir as a tough guy is absolutely ridiculous. His acting is worse than when he's Vantika.
Oh, come on.
I mean, of all of the nonsense in this episode, that's the thing I can't buy into.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't come off, does it?
No, I mean, the hair doesn't help, especially when he's standing next to Dax, and I was just like, oh my gosh, now they look like twins.
I would have at least gone for a scar and an eye patch.
A scar would help. An eye patch would look silly, because we had one in our man Bashir, but he needs a scar. Well, anyway, this Bashir wonders if he can buy them some more time using the raider ships to distract the approaching fleet.
Yeah.
So he and Dax are going to head off and do that.
Yeah, at least he's brave enough to give it a go.
And he's out of their hair, which is good. Oh,
yes.
I didn't mean that as a pun, but there it is. So Sisko goes to Kira to try to get her to help, saying the Regent is going to blame her for losing Terok Nor. She, of course, blames Garak. I mean, that was inevitable.
Oh, I think that's a wonderful example of how the Empire runs because of the Cardassian influence. They're all going to be blaming someone else.
Yeah.
Like you always say about Gulda Cat. He's finding a scapegoat.
Yeah, it's always their first reaction. I like the line that she said here where she says violence is a precision instrument, not a club. So like she knows when to dole out the violence, but Garak doesn't because he just does it all the time.
That's interesting. Do you see that as real or do you see that as just her justification? She's just as brutal and bad, but she thinks she's doing it the right way.
Well, no, I think she's being honest here because in the last episode that we watched, there were many times where she told Garak to back off of the workers. So I think when it came to the workers, she recognized that you would get more out of them with less violence. Yeah. But when it came to things she wanted or needed, she just would go right to violence. So maybe she treated the miners, the people forced into the mining, a little bit less brutally, but otherwise, no, she's just as bad as Garak.
Gotcha.
Well, Sisko points out that Garak is very likely blaming her for everything and doing it right into Regent Worf's ear, which is a good point.
And quite accurate as well.
Yes. So eventually she tells Sisko that the Alliance ship's targeting systems can be fooled into chasing warp shadows.
Ah.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. They're shadows in the warp signature.
Right. It's shadows that go very fast. Worf continues to beat up Garak, accusing him of stealing the key to his shackles, but eventually the Klingon who is feeding him finds that the key had fallen into his boot.
Yeah, after Worf had stabbed Garak for stealing the key.
Yeah, the whole scene was strange because it was like a little bit of weird comedy with this other Klingon being sort of dumb, but then he also stabbed Garak, but then it never comes up again. So Garak is obviously fine. So did he really stab him? It was such a peculiar scene.
Right, because Garak just sort of walks off in the background after being stabbed.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole point of the scene was that we hear that 6 rebel raiders are approaching.
I was wondering whether the point of this scene is also to show that Worf is, like I said, a full-blooded Klingon in the Mirror Universe. He'll just resort to violence if it serves his needs.
I guess.
There's no tempering. And then the other thing is, I'm thinking maybe this was to demonstrate the ineptness or the sloppiness of the Alliance.
Oh, maybe, because it did show that.
Yeah. I mean, this guy lost the key, dropped it in his boot, and, it's kind of inept. And also, the other side of the Alliance is then Worf's reaction is to threaten this guy with, oh, if the prisoner dies, you die, when it was Worf's fault that he stabbed him.
Well,
I think it's showing some more of that just chaos that is the Alliance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then we see Bashir and Dax evading the fire of the Alliance fleet using the warp shadow trick that they learned from Kira.
Yep.
There are a lot of battle scenes and ships flying around in this episode. Sisko is working on the Defiant when Mirror Jennifer comes in to help. She tells him that she confessed to Jake about what she did and that Jake has already forgiven her. Of course.
Of course he did.
Sweet, innocent Jake. She's falling a bit under the spell of Jake's love for his mother. Like she's getting confused by it as well. It's clouding her feelings. So she's decided to send Jake back to DS9 right away. She says, when we first met, there was a connection between us, but now it's gone because of what I've done. And Sisko says he's not sure the connection was real from the beginning.
Well, I think the connection was fake anyway, because he was pretending to be her husband. And even if she had a problem with the husband and they'd separated and whatever, they'd been a connection at some time.
Yeah. Although we never saw it or believed it.
Well, they didn't make it terribly believable.
No. Well, she's kind of stung here, so she says she'll get Jake home. Sisko kind of sighs, but he goes back to work. Now Jake is standing in his usual spot on the promenade, and Nog comes to complain about him standing there. Mirror Nog is annoying. I mean, he's worse than Quark.
Well, I think that's the point.
Yeah, that was the circle.
This Nog will not have had the education or the exposure to Jake's value system. So he's basically going to be a mirror image of probably Quark, because Nog was definitely smarter than his dad. I mean, and by Quark, I mean the Quark in the non-mirror universe, because the Quark in the mirror universe, like you said, was a mirror. He was a decent person, if you remember.
He was, yeah.
So this Nog is pure Ferengi.
Well, that's true, though. So both his dad and Quark were kind of good people. Yeah. So who was his influence? In the regular universe, it's Sisko and Jake have an impact on him, but somebody's having a negative impact on him in the Mirrorverse. Oh, it's very confusing. Yeah, I guess he's spending too much time around Garak.
Maybe he just embraced Ferengi tradition.
Yeah, well, clearly.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Well, Mirror Mom comes by, grabs Jake, and says, we need to talk in private. We go back to Mirror Kira in her cell, and she's trying to seduce the guard, but the guard says, you sentenced my wife to death. And she says, oh, isn't that a coincidence? I was hoping you weren't married. Oh, my God.
She is having so much fun with this role, isn't she?
I did not see that coming. This is where I could really see where Mirror Giorgio came from.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Right.
I mean, come on. That's funny.
Yeah.
And brutal.
She is playing this like a Bond villain. It's pretty funny.
Oh, absolutely. In comes Nog with a tray of food that he uses to knock out the completely useless guard. And then he breaks Mirror Kira out, saying he has a ship waiting for her on landing pad C. She takes the phaser from him, saying she'll need it more than he will. And then she says she wasn't aware that they were on the same side, which was a good line.
Yeah.
And Nog says, well, you killed my uncle and my father, so because of you, I own the bar. And then he laughs.
Very Ferengi.
This seems like a weird reason, though, to help her. I'm not sure that I buy that. Because what's he really going to get out of helping her escape? Maybe he's looking for more favors.
That's exactly what I would take from it.
Okay.
He's thinking that ultimately she'll end up back in charge, and having someone powerful like her to help him would be very useful.
Rookie mistake, though, having one phaser and letting her take it.
Oh, well, I think this is exactly the same problem that all Ferengi suffer from, if he's an idiot.
Yeah, they never think far enough ahead.
Exactly.
They're always just right in the moment,
Yeah.
which is the problem with just chasing profit constantly and not worrying about anything else.
Short-termism.
Short-termism, yeah, that's a good phrase. So the Alliance arrives at the station and starts shooting. Miles thanks Sisko and says it's time for him to go. But as Sisko is leaving, Smiley says he wishes he had more time to learn the ship before taking it into battle. Nothing like a little on-the-job training. For some inexplicable reason, this convinces Sisko to stay and take command of the ship.
Well,
maybe because he spent all his time fixing it and he doesn't want Smiley to screw it up.
that scene when Sisko's leaving and just rolls his eyes.
Yeah, he's like, oh.
Well, I think, okay, I have a theory about this. I think it's because Sisko feels a level of responsibility for what's happening. It was Bashir who kind of convinced Miles that he should become a rebel.
That's true.
So that's one of Sisko's people.
Yeah.
And then Sisko helped get Jennifer out of Alliance control because of the sensors she was working in. So I think Sisko probably feels that some of this is his responsibility. I also wonder if Sisko feels some kinship with these humans, because they still are people, even if they've had a negative upbringing and their value systems are corrupt. They're still humans. So I could see either of those two things being a reason why he might go, okay, look, I'll help. Also, maybe there's the Federation side of it as well, of these are people in need of help. But like you say, if they're people we like, we help them. And if they're not, we invoke
Prime
the
directive.
Yes, exactly.
But imagine how weird this would be to interact with people who looked exactly like the people that you interact with on a daily basis, but they weren't them. I imagine it would be difficult to turn your back on them.
Yes.
You know, and not help or not react in the way that you would normally. It must just mess with your mind.
That's a good point. There is that as well. Of these are people you know and they're your closest comrades. So
yeah.
I guess maybe that's part of the idea of this story, of the way Jake is kind of attracted to what he sees as his mother. And Sisko maybe is having the same problem of these are people that he sees as his friends and he can't leave them on their own.
Maybe. And there's this thing with Smiley really trying to better himself.
Yeah.
And become something more. And maybe he appreciates that.
That's true.
That's a Federation thing.
Do you think Smiley was trying to guilt Sisko into helping? Because I didn't see him doing that.
No, I didn't think he was. I thought that maybe the first time I watched it, but the second time through, I was like, no, it just really looks like Sisko going, oh man, I better help these people. They're just going to get killed.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of putting it.
But also Sisko loves that ship. I think he's just like, I fixed the ship. I don't want you goofing it up and getting it blown up.
Right. Well, who wouldn't love that ship? It's awesome. I've got a t-shirt with that ship on it.
You do. So Sisko just takes the captain's chair and Smiley says, Captain, you never cease to amaze me. So they take the ship out of dock and head into battle. Somewhere in a hallway, Kira and Nog are walking to the ship that he has for her. There's no need for him to be walking with her at this point. I mean, she knows where landing pad C is.
Yeah.
He should have gotten her out of there and then left, but he doesn't.
Ferengis. Idiots.
So she says she's going to Bajor, where she has friends who will hide her. And Nog says, well, don't worry about me. I won't tell anyone where you are.
Oh.
But as Kira starts to walk away, she realizes she revealed too much. And she kind of makes a face and she turns around and just shoots him.
Yep.
She says, you're right. You won't tell anyone. Oh, Nog. So dumb.
Yeah. You know that this is a woman who does not leave any loose ends if she can possibly avoid it.
Yeah. It's such a classic mistake, though, to think, oh, I helped the villain. Now I can trust the villain. Oh, no. That's not how that works.
No. Although, I liked it when she said about how she has friends on Bajor who could hide her.
Yeah.
I think she would be a very difficult individual to hide.
Yeah, in that outfit alone.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, I wonder if her friends on Bajor, maybe it's Kai Winn.
Oh, gosh.
They'd get along. This version of her would get along with Kai Winn.
Oh, I think so. They both have a similar level of ambition.
I wonder if it's Mirror Shakar.
Oh, I like the idea of it being Shakar. That would be funny.
But Mirror Shakar would have bangs and not the great hair that he had. Oh, no, wait. That's what happened in the other universe. Maybe that was Mirror Shakar. Oh, that was the reason for the bangs. Yeah. Well, in the very next scene, Jennifer and Jake are walking, and you just know Kira's coming at this point. Jake wants his mirror mom to come to DS9 with him, but she says it's better for all of them if she doesn't.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they run into Mirror Kira, who points her phaser at Jennifer and says, she looks as beautiful as ever. I do love that Mirror Kira is just into everyone, which is so, again, like Mirror Giorgio on Discovery. Now the station is under serious attack, but the Defiant is in action. Sisko calls for Pattern Delta, but Smiley has no idea what that is.
Yeah.
So Sisko gives more specific instructions. He's like, rocker. That was pretty funny.
I remember laughing at that the first time I watched this episode because I just thought it was funny that Sisko was using the Starfleet terminology and the guys around him are basically just rebel fighters who have no idea.
Absolutely.
About proper procedure or protocols or anything. They're just like, see the target, shoot at it.
Are you sure? Back to Kira and Jennifer. Mirror Kira thinks Jennifer will be a good gift for Regent Worf. Jennifer says she'll go with her, but they have to leave the boy. Kira asks who he is, but when she won't answer, Kira points the phaser at Jake. And Jennifer, of course, jumps in front of the phaser and takes the hit, going down. And then before shooting him, Kira asks why Jennifer was protecting him, and Jake says, she's my mother. So then Kira realizes it's Sisko's son from the other universe. Well, in that case, she says, give your father a message for me. Tell him I spared your life, and that's a debt I intend to collect on.
Wow.
And off she goes.
I thought that was great. Mirror Kira seems to have realized that her path and Sisko's just keep on crossing.
Keeps running into each other,
So having, like you always say, having that thing in your back pocket, that get out of jail free card, nice touch. She's almost like the opposite of Nog and the Ferengi. She is trying to think one step ahead.
Oh, definitely. Back on the Defiant, they're running right at the attack cruiser. Shields are down to 25%, so Sisko takes the helm and flies all around the attack cruiser, too close for the cruiser to target properly. Regent Worf is not amused. The Defiant gets into some trouble, though, when a bird of prey locks onto them. But it's okay, because Bashir and Dax swoop in and destroy that ship.
Hooray!
Hooray!
There's some great space battle stuff here.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's almost as good as the Way of the Warrior.
So they do enough damage to the cruiser that the beams start falling from the ceiling. That's how you know that they're in real trouble.
Obviously, Klingon ships as well are built with the same beams that fall from the ceiling.
Yes.
As soon as you start getting serious damage.
Oh, yeah. All the spaceships.
Yeah.
So the cruiser heads into warp and gets the heck out of there. And Smiley says, we won. And Sisko's like, you sound surprised. And Smiley says, I'm astonished.
Wow. I thought that was really remarkable. Smiley honestly wasn't really expecting to win.
Well, he hasn't won a lot in his life, so he probably was shocked. And I think, too, his experiences with the previous Sisko or the other Sisko were not as successful. So I think it makes sense that he was expecting to lose. He had no idea that somebody could have tactics and a strategy to get them out of there.
I think that is part of what the other Sisko was. He was, and didn't they say that he would jump in with both feet and then try and fight his way out?
Yes. Well, on the attack cruiser, Regent Worf now shouts that he's been betrayed, and Garrick immediately lays the blame at Kira's feet, which in this case is actually correct.
Oh, but that's still a classic Klingon trait. I couldn't have lost. I was betrayed.
Oh. Right. Garrick asks for the honor of administering her punishment, and Worf says, while you dispose of the intendant, I will dispose of the rebels. I laughed here, too, because Worf says to Garrick, make it so.
Yes.
It's like, okay.
Nice little TNG nod.
Yeah. All right. Back to Terok Nor, and Sisko heads to the darkened infirmary and finds Jake standing over a dying Jennifer. The perfectly made up and lipsticked Jennifer takes his hand and says, I knew we were still connected, and then she dies. Somehow with like a weird smile on her face. Sisko gives Jake a sad hug as they've had to watch his mom die twice, essentially. And Sisko whispers, "Let's go home." The end.
And this is where you realize that Jennifer also did have an effect on Sisko.
Oh, yeah, he's pretty upset.
Yeah.
But it might just be flashbacks to his wife dying. Because if you remember in the pilot when she died,
yeah,
I also said that she was like perfectly preserved and in perfect condition, even though the ceiling had fallen on her. There's like a beam across her and her makeup was still perfect. And her hair was still perfect. And it's the same thing here.
And he was forced to leave her there as well. So that was traumatic experience. And now here he's had Jennifer actually die in front of him.
Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah. I feel sorry for Jake because Jake never experienced
Just gets her back. No, it was terrible. We've reached the end of the episode. Do you have overanalysis?
I have a few overanalysis pieces.
Okay.
One of the things is the device that Smiley has created that allows them to just use the transporter and jump across to the mirror universe.
Yeah.
Clearly, Smiley is technically very competent. What you said earlier really makes me wonder, is Smiley constantly jumping backwards and forwards to collect information, to learn new things from the Federation? Because he seems to be able to do it with absolute impunity.
Well, it seems almost completely ridiculous that they can do this. This is my first note in overanalysis is it's way too easy for them to pop between universes all of a sudden. I mean, they need to close that loophole. And now that Sisko knows that Miles is able to do that and that he stole the Defiant blueprints or whatever they're called when it's a ship.
Yes.
He should want to close this loophole and make sure that they're not able to get through, because now you are helping them in the other universe, even though you're not supposed to be.
Right. And as Smiley left a device behind, maybe they could reverse engineer it.
Oh, they took it from him.
They
took it from Sisko when he landed there. They took his phaser and they took the device. So they don't have it, but they need to figure out how to close that.
Right.
There's nothing there for him anymore. Now that Mirror Jennifer is gone, there's nothing that he should want to go back for. I'm sure he doesn't want to go back for Mirror Kira.
Why not? She's kind of cool. You totally want to go clubbing with her.
I would always be worried she was going to shoot me.
Well,
made her mad, dead.
Well, she wouldn't shoot you until you had no further use to her.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to get to that point.
Okay, so the next thing is they took the plans for the Defiant and still had all the problems with the Defiant that seem to have been fixed in the regular universe. So that makes me think Miles must have done an awful lot that is not on the books. We saw in Homefront where they didn't know that the Defiant had ablative armor. So I'm thinking Miles has done all these tweaks to the Defiant and none of it is officially recorded.
I was wondering if Miles just doesn't like paperwork and he's always in there tinkering.
Oh.
It's like, added an upgrade, but, doesn't bother to fill out the paperwork so that it gets back to Starfleet.
I'll get to the paperwork later.
Exactly. And they did make that point. It was in Paradise Lost.
Oh, Paradise Lost.
Not Homefront, it was in the second episode. But that's kind of the way that I pictured it, is that Miles is just always out there working on it. It's like he's out in the garage with the hood open.
Yeah. And I think my final point, because we talked about pretty much everything else during the episode, the Alliance fleet, it seemed somewhat small. So I'm wondering whether the Alliance hasn't really put a lot of faith into the Rebels or look at them as a minor inconvenience.
Yeah.
So they're sending like a small cruiser,
couple of ships.
A few ships. Oh, yeah, that'll deal with them. So they've kind of underestimated what the rebellion is or their capabilities.
Yeah, I thought that was strange, too, if they really wanted to take that Terrak Nor back.
Yeah.
They would only send a handful of ships. But who knows? Maybe they're fighting on 1,000 different fronts. You never know in the Mirrorverse.
Well, that was the other thing I was wondering, if the Alliance is kind of like we've seen with the Cardassians, that a lot of it is bluster and they don't have the ships or the ability to really fight on multiple fronts and they are stretched to the limit.
Right.
And one big push would cause it all to come crashing down.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps it up for my overanalysis. Over to you.
Well, I only have 3 things in my overanalysis, and the first one was about they got to close that transport loophole.
Yeah.
But my second one is that Mirror Worf is more of a Klingon, just like we talked about, than he is in the other universe. But I still think the Klingons should be less Klingon-y. They seem exactly like Klingons. Right. Maybe a little inept might have been the joke in this episode.
Oh.
And Garak is just exactly like Garak. So, I'm missing the Mirrorverse part there. And Smiley is pretty much Miles at this point, except with a different background. So I don't know. Sometimes I'm confused about what the mirror thing is supposed to mean. I guess I had hoped to learn a little bit more about that at some point, but I just don't see that as much in these episodes.
I'm going to suggest that the mirror isn't really truly a mirror. It's just another alternative.
Just a brutal universe.
Yes. You know, like how in Parallels, we saw multiple different versions of Worf and the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Some of those were very similar. Some of those were different. And I'm thinking maybe the mirror is really like that. It's just a different universe. It's not truly an inversion of what we have in the main universe.
I mean, I guess that makes sense if you go back to the Mirror Mirror episode and you kind of think about it. If all those people lived in a super brutal world, maybe that is how they would react. Because Spock in the end was still quite logical.
Yes.
And, you know, he was the one who was able to see, maybe the way that we're all behaving is not the logical answer.
Right.
And then he made a change. So, okay, maybe I'm overthinking it with the use of the word mirror.
And we've seen the mirror universe evolve in the way that Giorgio
That's true.
was recognizing that there was a problem even during her reign.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. And she was already behaving differently than they thought she should.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'll stop complaining about that. Well, maybe
It's not really a complaint.
Do we have more mirror episodes? Maybe they'll come up again. I guess we'll see.
It's not really a complaint. It's just your observation.
It's just, okay, sure. That's what the listeners are here for. Maybe.
Well, I hope so.
Well, and then my third line in overanalysis just says, Bashir is ridiculous. That's all it says.
Oh, dear. Yeah, I'm afraid Bashir does not play a good action character in this episode.
No, he does not.
Which is funny, because in Our Man Bashir, he played kind of a Bond character much better.
Yes, but he was still playing Julian.
Yeah.
He was playing Julian being someone else.
Okay,
he seems to think, like, if we look at the episodes where the really good actors are playing someone else.
Yeah.
Like when Sisko was playing someone else in Dramatis Personae.
Love that episode.
And then there was the episode Facets where, again, Sisko was playing somebody else, right? And he was doing that weird murderous character.
Avery was just scary doing that character. And he's on screen for like 5 seconds.
And Kira was playing someone else. And Miles was playing someone else. And remember, they all did something with their voice. In all of these examples, these really good actors were changing their voice, in some cases having a slightly different accent.
Hello, Jadzia.
I feel like that's what Siddig is doing.
Yeah.
With Bashir when he has to be someone else. He thinks he has to put on like an accent or a voice. And honestly, it just ruins it completely because he's not good at it. Just play yourself, but doing a different character. Don't try to put on a voice because that just makes it so silly. I mean, the hair is just the hair, but he is not good in this episode. I mean, I wish he was, but he is not good.
Well, he's never been one of your favorites.
I have not disliked him in season 4. And when he plays the Bashir that I believe is a true Starfleet medical officer who will do anything to help patients, including violate the Prime Directive or put himself at risk, when he does that, I buy him as that character. I like that character. I'm happy with that character. When he's doing the nonsense of creeping on Dax, I don't want any part of it. It's too stupid. But no, I don't dislike him in this season. I definitely did not like him in season 1.
Well, yeah. They wrote a new character for the subsequent seasons.
But there's plenty of characters I don't like that I don't dislike the acting.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy who plays Ducat is great at Ducat, but I hate that character.
Yeah, that's because he's Ducat in real life.
Maybe he is. I'm just not impressed with the acting of that character in this episode. And I have a little bit more about acting to come as we go through the rest of the sections, as you might guess. All right, well, let's go to women in the future.
Okay.
I don't really buy this theory that all women want to have children. I have plenty of examples of people in my life who are not so enamored with it. So I wasn't really finding that story super moving.
Yeah.
That she was just like, oh, this is the child that I never had. Okay, sure. But I think that the actress playing Jennifer, she's god awful in this show. And I think she did just a completely horrible job of convincing me that she was really moved in this way. Again, thinking of other characters like Kai Winn as an example, that actress is so amazing. I would believe anything that she did with that character.
Yeah.
Whereas this is something that should have been pretty simple to portray. I mean, I can't do it, so, whatever. I can say it's simple, but she's terrible, and I didn't like it, and I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
Point 2, I'm still mad about this stupid thing of what happens in the Mirrorverse stays in the Mirrorverse between Sisko and Dax. That was dumb, and I'm annoyed that they brought it up again.
You're still annoyed about that.
I'm still, oh my God, that continues to irritate me and lessen the character. That really irritated me that it came up again.
I would have thought the fact the character was with Julian would have been more annoying.
But they didn't overplay that.
Yeah.
They almost did it so that she was showing Sisko that she'd moved on. They didn't have Bashir creeping on her. So that part didn't bother me.
Yeah.
The fact that their hair looked exactly the same, that was a little weird. But I digress.
Oh gosh, I bet they've got matching tracksuits as well.
Matching rebel tracksuits.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Kira was her usual fun self, especially when she shot Nog. I mean, I laughed out loud. I really appreciated that she survived for another episode.
Yeah. I think you see Nana Visitor really enjoying this character.
Yeah, I agree. I think they were sort of over-sexualizing her in the first episode because they were trying to make her super sultry. And I don't know if that was the acting choice or if that was the writing or the directing. Who knows? I'm sure somebody knows, but we don't know. But I thought that they overplayed it.
Yeah.
Now I like that she's just into everybody. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And that makes perfect sense. That thing with the guy guarding her in the cell where she was like, oh, I'm so happy to find out that you're not married. I mean, that was hilarious. So I think she's doing a great job. She clearly enjoys playing this character. And the fact that they didn't kill her tells me, even if there's not another Mirror episode to come, they planned to have more.
Yeah.
So I do hope there's more with her.
Question here.
Yeah.
Do you think she would be the kind of person who, if she was interested in someone, that she would deliberately plan to have their partner killed, murdered, die in an accident so that she could comfort them?
Maybe, but I don't think so because every fish in the sea is for her. So move on to the next fish.
Really? You wouldn't see her as somebody being possessive?
It might depend.
Yeah.
If it was somebody she was really into, maybe. But she didn't kill Jennifer.
That's true.
I don't know.
She didn't deliberately kill her, yeah.
I wouldn't put it past her. I just don't think that's her thing that she's sitting and scheming about.
Yeah,
she's sitting and scheming about other much bigger things. But would she do it? Sure.
Yeah, she's more obsessed with power.
Yeah, she's more obsessed with power.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Is there any way I could give this anything else than 2 thumbs up?
With all the Defiant scenes?
All the Defiant scenes, Sisko, Kira, just everybody really on form in this episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then the sort of subtext of how much Jennifer had impacted Sisko. Great overall episode in so many ways. And space battles.
Well, when I got to the end of the first viewing, my first reaction was thumbs down, don't like it.
Really?
And then I went back through and I watched it again because I have to take notes.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the second viewing a lot more than the first.
Yeah.
I liked all the stuff that Sisko does. All of the scenes were great. And Mirror Kira never disappoints. She's endlessly entertaining. But I found the Jennifer stuff just hard to watch with the low quality of acting. I mean, it's really pretty terrible. And this nonsense with Dax lingers from the way I felt about the previous episode.
Okay. Yeah.
I certainly liked the battle scenes and the Worf Garrick. That stuff was all good, fine. But I don't know. I just feel like there are some missed opportunities with these Mirror characters because they're too busy going for something else. It's like they're too busy going for laughs. It's like the stuff with the Ferengi. Stop going for laughs and give me Star Trek.
Yeah.
And then maybe I will like it more. So because there are so many things I liked about it, I'm going to move it to neutral, but I'm not going to move it to thumbs up.
I am surprised at that, but it's your rating.
I feel like this is one of those episodes where if you and I had watched it together and your reaction to it would have impacted me, but because we watch it separately so that we can come on here and have our own independent opinions, my opinions are going to be like this. I'm going to continue to be affected only by my viewings of it and the things that I'm holding on to.
Oh, you mean like the stupid volcano movie, which I found funny because you almost lost a kidney laughing at it so much.
That was the greatest movie we've ever gone to in the theater. I laughed so hard. I was like you laughing at that one, where you often have to try to stop yourself from laughing. I was trying to stop myself from laughing, and I couldn't because it was so ridiculous. Oh, gosh, I enjoyed that. I remember when we walked out of that movie, my stomach hurt from laughing so hard. It was great. God, that was fun.
That was fun to watch just because of your reaction.
It was so stupid. Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. Okay, so that wraps up Season 4, Episode 19. Come back next week for episode 20. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own over-analysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, please email us at rebingeit@gmail.com or tweet us at rebingeit. We're also on Instagram at rebingeit. Check us out on talkthroughmedia.com. You can leave feedback there for individual episodes, and you can also listen to the many other podcasts in our network. We pretty much cover all the Star Trek shows, and James and I have been doing a Star Trek Prodigy podcast. You can pick it up there, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. It's called Star Trek Prodigy, a Rebingeit podcast.
Thanks for joining us on the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.